Welcome to the Healing Collective podcast, where we explore the paradox of healing.
And we broadcast all of the healing codes to support a world of more heart-centered humans. Okay, I've had a weird day, or just like, it's weird is not the right word, but basically I did take Taylor to his dad's early because they're going to Detroit. And then I just came home and went back to sleep till like 12 and had like crazy dreams, like just really deep. One of which I remember, which was me being like besties with Khloe and Kim Kardashian, which I really enjoyed that. And I could feel the part of me that's like, this life is so much better than my real one. I don't want to wake up. And then Lola called me. We had a conversation, and then furniture got delivered.
Ooh.
Oh, I took my microdose like an hour ago, and normally you take it like in the morning when you first wake up. So I'm just like my routine.
Yeah. You've been doing like this tight morning routine, right?
Yeah.
Point your mic at you more rather than up, kind of like right at your mouth. Like actually more like, yeah.
This way?
Yeah. Like you want it pointing at your face a few inches away.
Okay.
So you feel off in just a weird way. I don't think so.
I wouldn't even say off. I just feel like, I mean, I guess it's honestly just how I've been feeling every day. Just, I pulled the card this morning. One of them was like in between. And I just feel so in between. Like I can't get like my feet on the ground, really. Like, where am I? What life am I living? Who am I?
And you are literally in between two living spaces.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And when is this going to be? What do you think the timeline is for this to be different?
Based on the cards that I pulled for the year, it looks like September is when I would feel like things are coming together. Yeah, I think July is a good month, or there's a lot of movement, but I'm not going to be here that much
because we'll be in Hawaii. So last night I was in the tub pre-editing the podcast and watching an episode we recorded March 30th or 31st or something, like the week after my somatic training, the advanced one. And I was saying how I was like really thinking about my vision, like how my seer, and how every time I try to picture this Hawaii trip, like I couldn't picture it. And I was like, I don't know what that means, because usually I can picture stuff. And I was like, I wonder if it's not. And a lot of changes are happening with this trip. One, you're coming now and you weren't coming before. Two, some of the people who were going are not going anymore. It's going to be so different. And so I just think I really knew something by not being able to see. Like I not see it, like picture it. Like when I go in the future, usually I can picture the things that are going to happen, or at least what the options are. And I couldn't. So I feel like I forgot that I said all of that. So watching this 2.5 months later, I was like, oh, I said those things. And now that makes sense, what I was noticing then. I'm appreciating that we're tracking all of our, crazy conversations, because I forget what we say. And when I re-listen to it, I'm like, oh.
I, first of all, if you're listening, cannot believe anyone listens to this. Like, I'm not like, why? And like,
people are still listening. We haven't posted anything for like 6 or 8 months. And we still 30, 40 people a week listen.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And
Me
I hope
too.
it's of service. And especially what we're about to release, it's like basically just me and Bethany like working through shit. And I told Bethany, like, I don't care to record it because it's hard for me to go back.
You don't care to record it, or you don't care to go listen to things that we've recorded?
Yeah, the recording's fine, I guess. It's like, I'm just kind of with so many things. My orientation is like, once it's in the past, but I over orient to the future is what I've been reflecting on. And, I have felt that I see a lot of things about my future and have oriented around that. And, it's not coming to pass, or things don't seem aligned with what I saw.
Well, you talked about that too. You talked about how you're able to see like the highest good version of what's possible, but that doesn't necessarily, that means the way it's going to go or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't actually know what I'm seeing, and that it's just that I'm like testing to try to figure that out. And it doesn't, yeah. I think right now it's a lot about being right where you are. And,
yeah. When is it not about that, I guess?
Yeah. It's like hard for me because it's like, well, like, why do, we have all these skills and these abilities, like, yeah.
It's like, I think we're going to bump up into paradox early in this episode, which is like, why do we have all these intuitions and skills and things if then we don't exactly, like, why would we have these things where we see something, but if that's not what ends up materializing, or if we're just supposed to be in the now, like, why do we have so much access to other things, something like that?
Yeah. Like, and yeah, I mean, I'm really thinking a lot about this Scorpio eclipse in my house of, what is it, ninth house?
Yeah.
Like, I am so upside down in my, like, in the ways that I like made faith.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things about who I am is that the ways that I have made faith, I've been really passionate about and passed along.
Yeah.
And so there's this other layer of like, I've been guiding people with some of these principles, or I've been really encouraging people to walk a similar path that it would been, and yeah, there's just like a big undoing of that. And just like I'm in this, if I'm really honest, I'm in this like deep kind of like resentment, anger, like who the fuck am I talking to when I pray at this point? Like it's usually something that I can like feel. It feels so real to me. I can't find that same energy or guidance. And yeah.
I'm so curious because like looking at the eclipses, like you almost could have guessed, right, that like some kind of unraveling would happen in this space. I'm so curious what eclipse season was going on when I sort of deconstructed all my faith, which happened like when I was 18, 19, 20-ish, 20 in there, maybe 21. I gotta go check it out and see.
Yeah. I've been having those kinds of thoughts about like, well, what was happening this year? And I'm like, damn, eclipses happen every year because I don't think I can handle this shit. And this has always been happening. And like, there's just something in me that feels like really had this, there's definitely some way that I was eluding myself before the last 7 years for sure. And maybe even within the last 7 sometime, like that I was controlling things more than I was, or that, you know what I mean? Or somehow like, I'm like, what were you saying?
Right. Mm.
Yeah. I'm in, and there's like a lot of anger and like resentment. And I'm thinking a lot about my mission statement that I wrote about being reunion with self, others, and life, you know, and I know that this time, you know, the message is loud and clear, whoever's sending it, that this is about reunion with self for me, and that I have, you know, devoted myself to others, and to others that weren't devoted to me, you know, and yeah, and there's some kind of reclamation of self that's happening. And then this like reclamation with being in one with life, which I interpret as like Gaia's consciousness, like the consciousness of Gaia. And so there's this other part of just like how slow everything moves, and how so much of what we believe we're controlling is an illusion. And there was a tornado in Chicago.
We talked about our last episode. We talked about it. I titled it something about tornadoes.
Yeah, just like there's just these things where it's like I really feel like the vibe I'm getting is like life is like, sit the fuck down. You weren't ever in control. And it's not in like it doesn't feel punitive or something. It feels like a really mature parent that very few of us had. It's just like, girl, you know, and like you're important, but you're not all that there is. Like everything that's happening is just as important as you, and the things that you want, the things that you're asking for. And like really, and this focus on like my offspring, which is really interesting, like being oriented to like myself and my offspring.
Yeah.
And placing my attention there, and like just how I cannot find productivity. I cannot find, there's just all these pieces that I can't access.
And so if your 9th house is Scorpio, your 3rd house is Taurus.
Yeah. So that's what neighborhood communication, right? And my Chiron is in my 3rd house.
Interesting. Because there would be an increase. There would be some kind of increase around those themes. Communication's another one, but local, neighborhood. And also like daily rituals, what you are doing. Like the 9th house is like mountaintop experiences, medicine work. The 3rd house is like praying every day, or going to church every week, or like whatever the things you do every day.
And so you're 1 and 7 then.
Yeah. So 7's Taurus for me. So I got a boyfriend. Drew, my first astrology reading with Drew like 2 years ago. He was like, spring 2022. It's like, and first house being Scorpio, that's where things are being let go of and stripped down. And, you know, I think Eclipse is in just life, I think brings us, you know, opportunities to let go of things we're ready to let go of or see differently. You let go of it and you rebuild it, and you make space for something new. And all this stuff in my first house is squaring my 3rd house, Pluto. And so it like, that's your siblings also is 3rd house. But I can feel a lot of stuff around my siblings is kicked up in a square, and me letting go of owning and getting really involved overly involved with what's happening with my siblings and like being available, but not really in their stuff, trying to control or do things. So I can feel that letting go of some of my old roles of like getting in the middle of everything, basically. And as far as like me, I have a lot of people in my life who are having like strong reactions to me right now. And it's like, I think letting go of some of my more codependent, hero-y kind of reactions to people, being upset with me or even being disconnected from me. I think I'm letting go of some of that. Like just.
What about with the committed partnership? Because I see those people as your committed partners too.
Mm.
And to me, like eclipse season, you were saying like, I don't know exactly how you're interpreting the eclipse around the 1st versus the 7th. Like,
yeah, first will be like, I guess parts of who I am.
Well, I know what they mean, but you said, it seems like you're saying, like my interpretation of eclipses is like things get like, are like flipped and like they get like unearthed. And it seems like you have a different interpretation of it. What do you?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know everything about it, but the most simplest terms is increases and decreases, and pressure in those areas. And so if I think about it in those most simple terms, I think about like what parts of myself am I being invited to let go of? And I think, yeah, letting some of my more codependent, like putting a one-on-one relationship, I've been talking about this, above what's good for either individual, and being like, well, no matter what, I have to stay in connection with this person no matter what. And doing all kinds of weird stuff that maybe is not good for either of us in some ways, just to stay connected. I feel like that feels. And then the increase that, like this new relationship, I noticed being really boundaried and really, I'm showing up differently in some ways where my goal and what I think I'm co-creating is for he and I to both be like honored as individuals first. And as long as being in romantic partnership is a part of that, great, but not like abandoning myself.
When I looked it up, it says eclipses signify significant periods of change and transformation. A solar eclipse opens the portal for new beginnings and change. A lunar eclipse reveals energies that help us complete a journey or shift our course in some way.
Yeah. So the lunar eclipses will be like the increase, like new beginnings, like newness.
So and which one is lunar? Is Scorpio?
Taurus is new beginnings. Like you're even moving into a new neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then letting go, the decrease or letting go is the completion. Like, and I can feel some of the things I've been learning about like integrating into more areas of my life.
Yeah.
But it's early. Got another year and a half of this. So, curious to see what else is going to happen, I guess. But
a year and a half? I mean, we started.
I think it's 18-month cycles.
I know the Taurus one started like last November.
Was it? Oh, okay. So maybe what?
I think
15 months.
Yeah, I think we're actually more than halfway through one of them. And cool. It seems like the Scorpio one happened later.
Yeah, I think the Scorpio stuff just started like last month or something like that. I forget. Mm-hmm. April. When did I do that journey? But we all did a journey on them. Didn't we do that on the eclipse? Was that the 30th? April 30th, something like that. Remember I texted you, I'm like, I'm journeying. And you're like, I'm journeying too. Remember that day?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was the eclipse day. That was the Scorpio day.
Yeah, so I think that was like very end of April.
I think that was the first one of that.
Yeah, the first Scorpio one.
Yeah, I mean, I really like, man, life has kicked my ass. Like this. And you sent me that thing about the Saturn stuff
Saturn,
and like
Saturn transits,
like being, I guess, like around 40 and stuff, and just I'm like, fuck, man. Like I know I believe I'll look back at this time and appreciate it someday, but it feels like you get up, like I get up, I dust myself off, I get oriented, and just like another blow. I'm like I cannot.
That's the second time this weekend someone's made almost that exact expression, talking about waves coming and like I can't handle another wave, and another wave comes.
Yeah.
She's a Pisces too.
Yeah. A lot. I mean, I talked to my friend Jonathan's a Pisces rising. Really similar, but his faith is really different from mine. So it was interesting to hear, you know, the kind of like crisis of faith that's going on for him, and similar, like got redirected, like had all these grand plans, got redirected with his like family of origin, taking care of his mom, his grandparents, and just kind of like, you know, not like I hate this, but it's like we're both very like mission oriented, you know, driven kind of people. So it's like wanting to create change in the world and all that, right? And so the message is like, go back to you. Yeah, and you know, just working through this resentment of like, I really am trying not to cry so much. That's honestly what I'm working on.
Why?
It's too much. Well, before I go into that, I was thinking about our conversation and the feedback you got about like the conversation we're having about 8 versus 4s, or, you know, these people. And I am like in the question of like, why was I created to feel this way? And to orient to all of it. Like I don't like it. And I've been like looking over my life, and you know, there's kind of like, I would say there's like the numb period, the really, really numb period. And then like once it got opened up, like and just like in this question of like, also, well, I don't know what was making me think about this. Maybe it'll come back to me, but just like, are we way more energetically connected than we could ever realize? And am I feeling the things for all these people who won't feel them? And there's just a way that can feel really true. And I guess if I, you know, if we even like right now, if I think about it in the 8-4 construct, right? It's like, well, I guess my agency and power, like let's say like more boundaries, more accountability is like pushes the energy back over there.
Yeah.
Like you feel some of this shit. You carry some of this. And then like an 8 energy is like gonna need to like put down some of that, I would imagine. You know, and I think so that goes back to this thing with like, you know, my resentment is like that basically, you know, Haman's a Scorpio rising, like Bethany. I've been in this like really, really devoted relationship where I was really devoted. He was not in the same way. I think he would say he was committed to my freedom, or he would say that he had his level of commitment, but it definitely wasn't matched. And it's like he's having all these things happen in his area of committed partnership when he's told me for like 7 years, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to commit to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, you just didn't want to commit to me. And and then like all the ways that like I have felt and carried, like the emotion, the financial, like everything. And is that, and just like, is there a way to like there's just like, and like the way that I resent having to like put up boundaries or be aggressive or whatever it may take to not to like put that back over there.
Yeah.
In some way. And then I just like kind of like shut down because it's like I really don't want to be unkind to him in any way. Like it just feels so fucked up. Like it feels like if there's anybody who should probably deserve for you to be unkind, like, it's probably that situation. There's this movie that came out. Have you heard of it? Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
No, but I really want to watch it. Everyone's been saying it's really good.
It's about time travel. It's about like I really related to the complexity of it, but there's this part at the end. I won't give it doesn't give away the plot for me to do this, but like I'm just trying to think without having all the context. Basically, her husband character is like her husband in every timeline or some kind of like partnership role, but it's whatever in every timeline, it's super different.
Mm-hmm.
But what's consistent is like his devotion to her. And her kind of like being like, I could have done better. And then there's this part where there's this timeline where she is famous and gets all this fame and like kind of like it's a huge contrast to her real life that she's living. But she goes on that timeline because she didn't choose to marry him. And they meet back up in that timeline. And she starts telling him like basically it's so good that we didn't, but she misses him. She longs for him and she longs for like they didn't have a daughter. Like all these things don't happen, right? And he says like because they owned a laundromat or whatever, and he's like, I would have folded laundry with you. And then there's this other part where he tells her it's like a little bit different timeline, and he's like, I know you think I'm weak. But he's like so sweet and like so loving. He's like, this is how I fight. This is how I choose to fight. And it's like from a place of like love, and I'm so related to that and like related to like the way that you're just, it feels like if you're not violent or,
yeah,
in this reality, if you're not like fighting for everything, like it's just like, it feels like you get crushed. And I think the more I get to know myself, I'm like, I'm a really, really gentle being. And I think that has something to do with like the house being called the fortress or whatever. It's like building something really big around and like sturdy around that like gentleness, but just all the facing, like just so much facing, like it's so hard to feel in my body like this person that you love so much that you think hangs the moon, like this is what he does to you. This is what he chooses over and over. Like And this is what he says. He says that you're friends, but he's not your friend. He's not friendly to you. And then like the complexity of even that, there's this piece of like, and in another way, also, he's doing the very best that he can. Like he literally is like giving as much as he to the edge of what he knows how to do. And even when, and all the ways he did show up was the ways that he knew how to say thank you for the things that you were doing. Like it is just the complexity of it. It's like sometimes I feel like my brain is going to explode. In that movie, it kind of shows like this. It's so overwhelming. Them navigating all the timelines at one time. It's like the same kind of energy of like, it's too much to hold.
Yeah, before you said the word facing, like when you said I'm trying not to cry because it's too much. That's what that was. I was just like so much facing, and it just makes a lot of sense to me to try to go in like little tiny slices,
Yeah.
I trust you going slow with it.
Yesterday, I met a couple. It's a friend of mine, and she just started dating someone, and he's in the program that I did, and basically there's just a way that I'm like, they had such great energy and so good, and there's, it could be told story, I could be totally wrong, who knows, but I'm like,
wait, when you say program, you mean sex and love addiction program?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, coaches, what are we talking about? Okay.
And I was just like, man, it feels like they're signing up for what I just finished. Or I don't know, it's, and and it's like, I don't know, there's just something really powerful about that.
About having finished it?
Seeing them at the beginning and seeing how
you would do it over again. Yeah. Yeah.
But like there's like the naivete, of this thing of like, there's this thing that Marianne Williamson wrote, and let me see if I can find it, but she basically is just like, we think that relationships or an intimate partnership especially is supposed to be this kind of like about like being happy, which is like, it's more about growth,
Yeah, obviously.
than being happy. But let me see if I can find
it. It's great when you can be happy too, though.
Yeah. Well, I just think though, it's like depending on what your lessons are in your life
and your commitments.
Where you are around like intimacy, like, if another relationship happens for me, like what I had to learn and go through, like I had to learn and go through it.
Yeah.
And like when I'm not hurting or mad, I could also look at it like, thank God it was him that chose.
Yeah.
To like do that with me, like you could see it as a gift,
Yeah.
But I think like just because this area of my life has been so difficult for so long, and there's just like this, like, I think, when I met him, there was this, like, I'm finally ready. I've done all this work. I'm ready. It's going to be different.
It's a good reminder. I can tell myself some of those stories too.
Yeah. And
like, oh, look what I'm doing different. Oh, look, maybe this is different.
And I guess what the biggest difference was, I was awake, and I could feel it all. And like this week, I've been asking myself, like, all the complaints, all the parts of him that have hurt me, like, can I find my version of that? And I've been with like there were some people that really loved me when I was young, and I was just so numb and so unavailable. And I have not been loved that way since. You're
not numb anymore.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, just being in my own experience, like, you made someone feel this way.
Yeah. We all have it all.
We all have it all.
Yeah.
And the facing of that, and like the flipping of that. And, I guess like this thing when we talk about being awake to consciousness or being awake to healing, like, I can see why you wouldn't want this path.
Yeah.
I could see why it would be like actually so much more comfortable to just keep blaming your experience, even if you're cycling over and over and over in the same experience.
Yeah.
To just keep blaming other people.
Yeah.
And I get scared about, there's definitely a part of me that's like, will Heyman ever have to feel it? Will he ever know, like, because there's a way that I'm like, you don't know me at all, because you don't know my experience.
It's a tricky thing to attach to wanting to have that experience of him getting it in a way that he might not get it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm less attached to it. There's just like, I have been. Yeah. There's just like longing. It's more, I think it's a question of like, is reality just for everyone? Is it, because I see how there's like rebalancing always occurring, and how confronting that can be, and the accountability it is to be alive and to be awake, I guess is what I'm saying. And I'm like, I think there's definitely that one in me that's like looking over there and be like, I don't think they're having to do that. I don't know if but there's what's coming to me now is like, I think sometimes disease, like physical disease, like, it's like, you can feel it the way I feel it and like look at it the way that I do, or you can, metabolize it through your body. There's probably other ways that the energy gets balanced. If you're not willing to like look, or if it's that it's just not the way that I guess your system was constructed to balance, or whatever, however you want to look at it.
Yeah. And I think about my cancer experience. It's been interesting. Some of the calls that have been coming through at work, people have like watched my TED Talk and then like contacted us about coaching. And people are talking to me about it, or I'm getting little emails like through the forum website that people have been watching that. And people are like, I'm so sorry you got cancer. And I'm like, I'm not. Because it woke me up about listening to my body. And now I'm, in devotion. It was such a wake up. And so, sometimes it just takes that much to shift how we think about the thing or get our attention enough, I don't know.
Well, like you didn't have to die, I guess.
It's true. Yeah, I didn't.
Like that, I think because you made it through and there's another side, you can see the other side experience. It's a lot. I would imagine it's a lot easier to be like, I'm grateful I got that. I'm grateful that happened,
Yeah.
But like if it was like your kid got cancer and died and that was the way you woke up, you know what I mean? There's like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, fuck you, universe,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it is like a helpful, like survival based ability to try to see the value in things and ask wonder questions and see the other side. And the shadow side of all that is bypassy stuff or whatever. So, I can see both fuck you universe and thank you universe. I can see both. Probably spend more time in thank you. So that just must really work for me, I think, somehow.
Well, I can see my bypassy stuff is shown up as like, just like how like like how much I love Heyman, how much I put him on a pedestal of and put like our connection on a pedestal and the imbalance of seeing like the like really, really feeling into it's like I haven't even been able to access it. That's what I think the microdosing is helping is like to actually see it in a more whole way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like seeing him through so many positive projections or have been,
Tell me about your microdosing protocol. What's going on?
Well, first of all, I really hope this woman goes on the podcast at some point. She said I brought it up to her and she was kind of not fully open, but she said she listened to some of ours and she was
cool
into it. I just something, I'm not really trusting a whole lot of anything that I feel, but I tend to have this experience of like, okay, this person has the codes. We need to spread the codes. Like, some of her self-healing stuff and like just her beingness to me is just like, it's definitely something I'm super attracted to. And I'm like, I want more of whatever that is.
Cool.
In her physiology and her relationship to her physiology and how it connects to nature and everything. So I started doing her program just around like women's root cause health and at the same, she just so happened or not just so happened to launch this and she like downloaded all of it. She's like, she has like the spiritual, the physical, the biological. I think that might be like my biggest attraction. And she was starting this microdosing program.
So it's like a company that provides it's like supplements almost or like
it comes in like capsule form and like how's
she getting away with that legally?
I know there's some loopholes right now. I don't know what they are. I know that and there's certain like protocols for the way that we move through it, but she's really thoughtfully sourced her ingredients and like so you just take the capsule like in the morning 4 days a week and off 3 days. And I just started this week. And then I do it with my meditation and like journaling in the morning. And it's just like I don't know, it's crazy, because mycelium like goes through and like moves out decay and reorganizes and I can like it just the way it feels like it is going through my system and it's like here this is not, you need to look at this.
Wow.
And
that's
so
cool.
I mean it is, and it's like I haven't done it on like a day where I'm like have very many work responsibilities or anything like that, so I think I've definitely had kind of a really difficult last 3 or 4 days, in terms of what it's like brought up for facing. And it hasn't been super intense where it's like overwhelming. I think because the dosage of, what the dosage is.
Yeah. That's interesting because, so, I've been getting stretched since like September or something like that by Mary. I pretty much go every week or so, or she comes here, which is absolute blessing when she just comes to the house and does it here. But she brought her friend Zach, who's this like hulking 30-year-old dude who like stretches the fuck out of you, and they do it together. So they get on each side of you, like they're doing your meridian, so they stretch me together. And I literally like was so sore. But
I'm like imagining like a Gumby situation,
and it was full Gumby, and they were working on like literally I was like laying on my back and my legs were just like this, and they're pulling my legs apart and just pushing it back together. It's just like the thing I found the most hilarious. My kids are just walking around like they've seen so much weird shit. They're not affected. They don't even have any questions about it. Like, and they're dripping sweat. Like that's how hard we're working because my fascia is so thick, and like which is
more
good.
thick than like most people. Is that?
Well, Mary worked on my mother, who walks 3 miles a day and does yoga 5 days a week. And she said it's the most healthy person she's worked on in her practice, like in the last 3 years. So no, I have a lot of like thick, unhealthy fascia, especially like all through my hamstrings, pelvis, whatever. All the sitting, I haven't been able to exercise because of all these abdominal surgeries for all this cancer stuff. Like I've had all these problems or whatever. But it kicks everything up. So I've been getting like stretched by Mary. And then whenever Zach's here, I'm getting stretched too. And it's like next level, basically. And she's been checking in with me. She's like, how are you doing? She's always polling me and texting me like, how are you? And I'm like, I'm crying. I've been crying like every day. Like I probably have, it's interesting because there's some like weird, challenging things happening. Some of my friends aren't happy with me and giving me a lot of critical feedback. And I'm not just crying at every moment, but I am just moving through feeling a bunch of stuff. And she's like, like, she's like, you're feeling through all the stuff that's been stuck in your fascia. And so it's kind of wild. Every time I can get her and Zach to do it at the same time, I'm doing it. And I'm just like, this is my protocol. But this whole week I've been crying so much. I've been feeling, and I think facing so much stuff. And I think it's because of the like changes in my body, and you're of course over there doing a different version of it. And just never ceases to amaze me that we're always doing the same stuff. But yeah, double teamed fascia. And like, so 2 very strong people moving my stuff, and I'm not even tired. And like, that's how thick it is because I'm not using my muscles. It's the fascia that's like so thick. So it's
well, that's what my sister's journey really opened me up to, this, like just seeing how her conscious mind the whole time seems so like here. But then her body was releasing all this stuff, and like that it didn't have to go through her conscious mind.
Yeah.
To necessarily release. And like, I think there's, obviously like strengths and, consequences of that or whatever.
Yeah. And that's
I was like, wow. Well, I look at my mom, like there just seems like there's certain even like personality types that just like orient to releasing that way.
Yeah. We say it all the time in SE, you don't even have to know what you're processing to let things go. Because the reason that we put things away in our subconscious is because we can't handle them in those moments. It's a brilliant system of tucking things away into your unconscious, literally, so that we can keep living and performing and functioning. And so,
right, that must be what 4s or whatever don't have. Like that's
you guys are missing a membrane or some shit,
right? Like it's like the whole subconscious is just like front and center.
There.
Like and it's almost hard to get out of it.
Yeah. And 8s are just like, like we can,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is more painful. It's more uncomfortable, I think, to feel and face and to choose that as your highest good and your goal. So you can be more awake and more aware. And you get to be more awake and more aware and you get to see all this stuff. So like, I get why we're doing what we're doing. And yeah, I totally can see what you're saying about how much easier it is. I think all the time when you coached me in Copilot couples coaching, and we were just talking about like, what is the goal? What is the goal of this relationship? And you were like, if your highest goal is like learning and like using everything for learning so you can come back to yourself and come back to the other person, you'll probably create a relationship where you bump into stuff all the time because you're there to do your work and learn this stuff and move and face and feel. And if you create, if your highest goal for the relationship is like have a happy relationship, it's probably going to be really different. And no judgment about like, if I'm going to have a relationship so we can be like happy. And I can see how Jesse and I, my ex-husband, we did not process things. We did not talk about things. And I can see how we could just be pretty sleepy and we didn't fight, like we weren't mean. I didn't feel connected to him or myself. And at some point, something shifted in me. And I was like, I want the other thing. I want to be deeply connected. I want to see and feel. And he just didn't want to do that at that time. Mm-hmm. And then I went on this other road that I'm still on, which I don't regret, but.
Oh, then maybe we can end with this Marianne Williamson thing, because that kind of, let me see what wants to be read today.
It's so funny because.
Okay. Can I read this?
Yeah, I'm like wondering if you're going to read the thing that I just reviewed us reading. Like you read a Marianne Williamson thing about falling in love. That's the podcast episode that I
the last one?
Night.
Yeah.
That's what, see, I'm curious if it's the same. Go.
That's interesting. We're coming back to a circle, like a spiral. There's a difference between romance and love. Often the true path of love begins only when romance has begun to taper off. For love is the capacity to see light when darkness has begun to eclipse it. Love is easy when romance still lights everything in shades of pink, when the experience of a relationship is like the canvas of a sweet impressionistic painting. Once the reality of our woundings reveal the darkness still lurking in all of us, romance might die while true love does not. Many people are proficient at romance who are not proficient at love. They see the humanness of their partner and say, nah, I want romance again. Then they start over somewhere else, beginning again the path that will always end up in the exact same place. The choice to follow love through to its completion is the choice to seek completion within ourselves. The point at which we shut down on others is the point at which we shut down on life. We heal as we heal others, and we heal others by extending our perceptions past their weaknesses. Until we have seen someone's darkness, we don't really know who that person is. Until we have forgiven someone's darkness, we don't really know what love is. Forgiving others is the only way to forgive ourselves, and forgiveness is our greatest need. Running away from someone else's darkness is a way of running away from our own, in the false belief that in running we can escape, but we cannot escape. Our self-loathing will always meet us down the road, no matter how fast we run and what fancy footwork we're doing. Failure to see our judgment of others is an extension of our judgment on ourselves and denies healing on both and the chance to move to the center of things. In the spiritual space of intimate connection, we have the power to heal and be healed.
Amen.
My sister, I said hi.
I'm having dinner with Jackie tonight.
I know that's what I said.
Oh, yeah. Father's Day.
Yeah, Father's Day. I kind of thought that might come up, but
I thought so too. I could tell you something meaningful in less than 2 minutes about that.
Okay.
Today's Father's Day. I'm sure people are probably listening. The rate we're going, right, probably this will come out around Thanksgiving. But today actually is Father's Day when we're recording. Lauryn and I have both lost our fathers to this dimension. And it's 14 years for me. And for the first 10, 11, 12, I never went to the grave because it was so overwhelming. Even thinking about considering going to the grave, I would get so overwhelmed, I would have a breakdown. And then basically all the somatic work, like I've just been moving through the stuff. And 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to go. I think Father's Day and the anniversary of his death were on the same day. And I said, okay, I'm going to go. And I asked Copilot to go with me, and he couldn't, and whatever. I went by myself, and it was overwhelming, but I went there. And I couldn't even find the spot because it had been 12 years since I had even gone to the graveyard. And finally I found the spot. I twisted my ankle. I fell over. I was just crying, it was so intense. Something about being around his matter, knowing I was standing above his bones. And so that was 2 years ago. And today I went and I found his spot, and I had a little bit of flow, and I sat on the grass. I talked to him a little bit, and I felt the intensity and the magnitude of, being with his matter, but I wasn't overwhelmed. And yeah, I just felt connected. And that feels good. I'm happy that I get to be with you and Jackie on Father's Day.
Yeah. I have a little altar to my dad, but I've gotten to where I can be I can feel I love him, and I miss, I wish there were more moments.
Yeah.
But I can't always. The grief of it all, Jacqueline was there, when he died. And there's a way that I'm so mad that I wasn't, and I don't understand why I wasn't. But I also just feel there's just some layers of grief around it that I cannot hold.
I had this exact thought today. So my dad is buried on top of his dad, and my grandmother is buried on top of my dad. So all three of them share a gravestone.
Oh, wow.
And my grandmother outlived my dad by 9 years. Outlived her husband by 40 years. And I was remembering my grandmother's death. I was present for that. And I was already on my path. I was doing this stuff and during CLG kind of stuff. And I was just yeah, I've experienced people dying. I've watched people die. And for my dad, months and months of his illness up until the end, I was there for all of it. I was his primary caretaker. Yeah, there was so much. It was just a lot of hands-on physical care. And I forget if I've told you this, but he made us promise when he could still speak that we wouldn't bring him back to the hospital no matter what. Mm-hmm. He wanted to die at home. And at some point, his body couldn't metabolize the pain medicine anymore. And he was going septic, and things were breaking down literally inside of his abdomen. And so he just was at the very end, he was in so much pain. He hadn't spoken for a couple of weeks, but he was screaming. And I was had this promise not to call an ambulance, but I didn't know what to do. And so I called the ambulance. And when they came, my Uncle Timmy went in the ambulance with my dad, and I got in the car to follow. And, my Uncle Tim called me before they got to the hospital. My dad died. And he wasn't going to the hospital. And thank God. Thank God I wasn't there. That's how I feel about it. I wasn't supposed to be there, and he wasn't supposed to go to the hospital. So yeah, I was 7 minutes from my dad's passing, just like you. It's the same, different circumstances, but we both just weren't there. And I just thank God.
That's the thing about this whole thing. It's everything is just us, it's all go back to your self-love and all that. There's just this, it's I get it. And that paradox, but we love each other so deeply, and it's so and why for what it why what's coming up as an answer is to know the character of love, and all of its characteristics.
Yeah. And what comes up over here is just when we are in love, in all of its forms, I think that's our highest self. And anything that is in the way of that is worthy of getting looked at, because I just think that might be the highest form. That might be our light bodies descending. That might be enlightenment. Loving.
Well, it's definitely heaven.
Heaven, yeah. Hard to know heaven without hell, though.
Right. Yeah.
Love you.
Love you. Talk to you soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Bye.
Bye, honey.
Thanks for listening. We welcome your feedback. You can email us at healingcollectivepod@gmail.com. Our website is thehealingcollectivepodcast.com, at Healing Podcast on Twitter, at Healing Collective Podcast on Instagram. Special thanks to Ethan Luck, who produces. You can find him at Ethan Luck on all platforms.